In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, April 29th, here in South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol is hosting main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung at the top office for talks over tea as he looks to work with an opposition-led parliament throughout his 5-year term. Meanwhile, a weekly day off from outpatient services and surgeries at major hospitals is going into effect this week, as senior doctors seek to better cope with the absence of junior doctors who remain opposed to expansions in medical school seats. And on the international front, concerns of a potential ground offensive into the city of Rafah in southern Gaza by Israel have been put on hold, following news of a phone call between US President Joe Biden and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu this past weekend. We start at the Yongsan presidential office, where President Yoon Suk-yeol is hosting main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung for talks as we speak. For details on this much-anticipated rendezvous, I have our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young live on the line. Soo-young, welcome. Now, I understand that the talks are taking place in the absence of a set agenda, Soo-young.
Hi, Sonny. Yes, good afternoon. So President Yoon and opposition leader Lee Jae-myung are meeting here at the presidential office from 2 p.m. They'll talk over tea for about an hour. It's likely to stretch on longer than that. But as you said, it's going to be without a list of preset items. Now, this is to keep the conversation open to any topic, according to the presidential office. Of course, the opposition vehemently disagreed. And last week, we saw Yoon and Lee's aides clashing during their working level preparations. While today's meeting is going ahead, we can expect the opposition leader to raise the issues or demands that his party initially put forward. Now, this includes Lee's campaign pledge to distribute a one-off payment of 250,000 won, or $182 to all Korean citizens as a means of boosting people's livelihoods. The DP also wants Yoon to comply with a special investigation into the death of a Marine last year, as well as allegations of stock price manipulation involving First Lady Kim Gon-hee. Now, with President Yoon also having vetoed various opposition-led bills, including the special probes, the DP leader may request an apology. It's quite unclear how Yoon will respond to any of the above, particularly on the request for special probes. He said before that he will listen to all that he has to say, but hopes to touch on pressing issues related to people's livelihoods.
Right, and despite the uncertainty over how these talks will pan out, many appear to agree, Soo-young, that the face-to-face in itself is meaningful. Do tell us more.
Right. The meeting is very symbolic in that it marks the first time Yoon and Lee have held talks in their current capacities since the president took office 2 years ago. Now, after Lee's party gained a massive majority in the April 10th general election, Yoon has become the first president in South Korea's modern political history who has to work with an opposition parliament for all 5 years of his tenure. That's why experts say that it is key for President Yoon to show that he is actively listening as promised, while the opposition leader should probably not push too hard for concessions in the first meeting. Where they could potentially see some progress, though, is on resolving their conflicts in the legislature, where the opposition has forced through bills without consensus from the ruling party, only to have the president veto them. It would be crucial for them at this point to signal mutual understanding on the need to work together in the interest of the public and people's livelihoods. Yoon and Lee also might be able to cooperate on appointing a new prime minister, a position that requires approval from the National Assembly. So some observers think that Yoon might consult Lee on a candidate or ask for a recommendation. Of course, others have different opinions on that. Another area for possible cooperation is on medical reform, as doctors' groups continue to resist the government's push for systematic improvements in the healthcare delivery system. So it's quite likely that President Yoon will ask Lee to adopt a unified position or to support him in ending the ongoing medical crisis in the nation and to normalize hospital operations. So we're really going to have to wait and see what's discussed during this meeting, but of course I'll be keeping you posted on that.
All right, Soo-young, and in the meantime, thank you for that coverage. That was our top office correspondent, Oh Soo-young, with the latest regarding President Yoon's meeting with opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung, taking place as we speak at the Yongsan presidential office. Now, come tomorrow, that is Tuesday, April 30th, President Yoon Suk-yeol will host his Angolan counterpart, João Lourenço, at the Yongsan presidential office. President Lourenço arrived in Korea this past weekend on a 3-day agenda. According to the top office here, the two leaders during their upcoming summit will touch upon promoting partnership in diverse arenas, including trade and investment, as well as shipbuilding projects and energy initiatives. Angola is known for its abundant reserves of minerals, and it is also an exporter of crude oil. Meanwhile, following the forging of formal ties earlier this year, South Korea and Cuba are now working to open up diplomatic missions. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, a delegation was dispatched to Havana last week for talks on related matters. That being said, a temporary office will be set up in Havana by Seoul as it lays the groundwork for the establishment of an embassy in the near future. Back in February this year, Cuba became the final country in the South American and Caribbean region to forge formal ties with South Korea. And starting this week, major hospitals here are taking a weekly day off from outpatient services and surgeries to better cope with the absence of junior doctors who remain resolute in their opposition to planned expansions in Korea's medical school seats, as echoed by the new head of the country's biggest medical association. Our Kim Bo-kyung has the latest.
The nation's largest doctors group, the Korean Medical Association, is maintaining its firm stance following the election of a new leader. During the association's regular General Assembly on Sunday, the group's president-elect Lee Myung-taek reiterated the call for the government to scrap its proposed medical reform plans, saying the medical community will not budge or respond to any call for negotiations if discussions do not begin from a clean slate. Though Im's term officially begins on Wednesday, May 1st, his role already began as the emergency committee was disbanded on Sunday. The incoming new head's hawkish stance comes as medical professors made a decision to take one day off per week from their duties. That was decided at the emergency committee meeting of professors from around 20 major medical schools nationwide. They cited prolonged fatigue as they had to struggle after thousands of trainee doctors have been absent from their posts at general hospitals since February 20th. Professors hinted at the possibility of extending the day off if the government confirms that there will be an increase in the medical school quota. Starting from this week, the so-called Big Five hospitals will begin to halt medical services one day a week, with professors at Severance Hospital and Seoul National University Hospital taking a day off on Tuesdays, while those at Asan Medical Center and the Catholic University of Korea's Seoul St. Mary's Hospital will take Fridays off. Professors at Samsung Medical Center will take volunteer days off based on their working schedule. To this, health authorities again urged trainee doctors to return to work and professors to remain with patients while saying the government has a strong will to talk.
We urge doctors to actively participate in discussions to devise improvement measures. A special presidential committee on medical reform has been officially launched, and the government reaffirms its willingness to engage in one-on-one conversations with doctors.
The ministry also reiterated its plan to inject a total of around $7.5 billion into surgical and internal departments by 2028, highlighting its plans to properly fund a specific treatment for serious cardiovascular diseases. Meanwhile, medical schools are expected to make final decisions on the size of the increase for admissions for the 2025 academic year by Tuesday, upon request from the Education Ministry. Watchers predict that medical schools will open a minimum of 1,500 new slots. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Concerns over a potential ground offensive into the city of Rafah in southern Gaza by Israel have been put on hold, following news of a phone call between U.S. President Joe Biden and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu this past Sunday. Our Ising-jae has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu held phone talks on Sunday, where the two exchanged their opinions on the ongoing hostage and ceasefire negotiations and Israel's planned offensives in Rafah. While it's unknown what the Israeli leader said about operations in Rafah, it's presumed that Netanyahu expressed his intent to go ahead with an attack if there's no ceasefire and hostage agreement reached. According to the White House, Biden, on the other hand, reiterated his clear position that there would need to be a clear and actionable plan from Israel on how they would protect civilians in Rafah. The need for humanitarian aid for Gaza was also discussed. The talks come as Israel told the U.S. that it wouldn't launch an offensive in Rafah, where more than 1 million people are displaced, until the Biden administration had an opportunity to share its concerns. Meanwhile, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said Sunday that the U.S. is the only country that can stop Israel from conducting its offensives in Rafah. Abbas emphasized that the offensive could force much of the Palestinian population to flee the enclave. He also said such an attack in the region would lead to the biggest catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history and force Palestinians out of Gaza. He stressed that once Israel had completed its operations in the enclave, it would then look to force Palestinians out of the occupied West Bank and into Jordan. Israel has hinted at an all-out assault on Rafah for weeks, saying its goal is to eliminate Hamas' remaining battalions in their area. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And staying with armed confrontations in the global arena, Ukraine is suffering setbacks in its fight against Russian invasion amid shortages in crucial defense supplies. Our Yoon reports.
The commander-in-chief of Ukraine's military, Oleksandr Syrskyi, said Sunday that the situation on the eastern front line has worsened due to Russian attacks forcing a withdrawal from positions in Donetsk, while they wait for promised U.S. support, with Russia apparently keen to use its superior troop numbers and artillery before reinforcements arrive. The U.S. approved a military aid package for Ukraine worth $61 billion last week, but the new weapons have yet to reach Ukraine's front lines. Ukrainian troops have been struggling with shortages in manpower, ammunition, and air defense systems for several months. Taking to Telegram, Syrskyi said the situation had worsened, describing the most difficult areas as Mariinka and northwest of Avdiivka, a town captured by Russian forces in February. He also revealed some tactical success by Moscow, which had forced Kyiv to take up new defensive positions farther west, but added that it was unable to gain operational advantages. He did not address the status of the village Novobogmutivka, located about 10 kilometers north of Avdiivka, which Russia on Sunday claimed it had taken. Meanwhile, on Sunday, North Korea criticized the United States for supplying long-range ballistic missiles, which Ukraine has now used twice. The criticism, through North Korea's Korean Central News Agency, claimed that Washington's actions were a bad attempt that can never change the situation on the battlefield and will only fuel Zelensky's reckless confrontational behavior. Yoon, Arirang News.
Beijing has granted Tesla the green light for overseas data transfer to allow for the rollout of its full self-driving software in China. Our Shin Ayon covers this approval and the unannounced visit to the Chinese capital city by Tesla's founder.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk arrived in Beijing on Sunday for a surprise visit, where, according to Reuters, he is expected to discuss the rollout of full self-driving software and permission to transfer data overseas.
It's good to see electric vehicles making progress in China. All cars will be electric in the future.
During the visit, Musk met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang and said Tesla is willing to take the next step in deepening cooperation with China to achieve more win-win results, indirectly referring to Tesla's request for assistance in rolling out full self-driving in China. Premier Li told Musk that Tesla's development in China could be regarded as a successful example of U.S.-China economic and trade cooperation, affirming that China's market is always open to foreign companies. Also on Sunday, it was announced that Tesla had passed China's data security checks. The China Association of Automobile Manufacturers on Sunday published a list of 76 vehicle models that it said were compliant with China's data security requirements. Among them were Tesla's Model Y and Model 3 cars. These requirements include anonymizing facial information captured by vehicle cameras and not collecting driving-related data. Chinese car makers including BYD and NIO also passed this inspection, but Tesla is the only foreign automaker to do so. As a result, the possibility of Tesla introducing its full self-driving software in China has increased. Despite developing this software 4 years ago, Tesla could not roll it out in China as it could not transfer data collected in the country abroad to train its algorithms, all due to regulatory constraints. Shin Ayon, Arirang News.
On the local front, a display panel designed for the visually impaired is looking to offer them greater access to digital content and more. Our Yoon shows us how.
Bumps appear on this black display. Its stiffness is firm enough to be noticeable by touch, but disappears in 2 to 3 seconds. The height of the bumps can be controlled in 14 levels from 0.1 millimeters to 1.4 millimeters, as well as the stiffness from rigid to rubbery. This is a tactile display developed by a team of South Korean researchers. What's unique about it is that the polymer material used is merely the thickness of human hair, and the display doesn't need an electronic circuit.
The lack of a circuit board increases its durability because it makes the display less prone to physical impact.
The top layer of this morphable display is made of material that generates heat when exposed to light. And this layer is covered with a film that is rigid, but at a temperature above 50 degrees Celsius becomes rubbery. With added air pressure under the display layer, the bumps appear according to the LED light pressure.
Our goal is to increase the number of tactile sounds to 5,000 for the expression of high-resolution graphics.
This research was featured in the international academic journal Nature Communications, and the research team added that this technology could not only be applied to electronic devices that help the visually impaired, but could also add touch to the metaverse. Yoon, Arirang News.
On the local silver screen, action-packed thriller The Roundup Punishment has hit over 4 million ticket sales just 5 days after its release. Now, it is the 4th installment of the popular The Roundup series, featuring actor Ma Dong-seok, and accounted for 94% of all theatre admissions sales from last Friday to this past Sunday. It is also the fastest film to surpass the 1 million viewer mark this year. Industry insiders believe this latest installment of the series may join its second and third counterparts in surpassing 10 million views, making it the second movie this year to hit this milestone after the movie Ex-Humor. Korea's top 3 musical festivals, classical musical festivals that is, include the Symphony Festival with Hanwha, the Dongyong International Music Festival, and the Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music. Now, the latter is the youngest of the 3 festivals, and our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin covers its agenda for this season and more.
The youngest of Korea's big 3 classical music festivals is back. The Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music has returned for its 19th edition. The orchestrator is first-generation classical musician and violinist Kang Dong-seok. Back in 2006, Kang teamed up with the Seoul city government to turn his dream into reality.
That was one of my dreams, that to start something in Korea. And this kind of festival exists everywhere in the world, you know, and in any major cities they would have this kind of, you know, very specific festival, you know, devoted to chamber music. So.
But SSF isn't just about performances. It's about breaking down barriers, especially in chamber music, and making classical tunes accessible to everyone.
I think it's just they have some kind of cliche that chamber music is difficult and not accessible and all that, but I think that's completely wrong. So we have to try to prove that.
Joining Kang this year are 59 musicians in perfect harmony under the theme All in the Family. The lineup includes performances from families of musicians to ensembles who forged tight bonds through years of collaboration. Among the performers is Matthew Dufour, former principal flutist at the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra.
It's quite intense, but it's always such a great opportunity to see old colleagues, you know, and to meet also new ones. And I have to say, in Korea, there are so many fantastic young musicians, and so that's why it's exciting. It's kind of
SSF's impact goes beyond the stage. Throughout the festival's nearly 2-decade run, Korea has seen a rise in chamber music festivals across the country.
Festivals like SSF are really making classical music more accessible by offering the public a series of top-notch performances. Also, with more festivals popping up and increased funding from both the public and private sectors, they're able to attract better artists and put on more captivating shows in proper venues.
For those who wish to explore the world of classical music, the Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music runs until May 5th. 송유진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today in China, where a tornado struck the city of Guangzhou on Saturday, killing at least 5 and injuring 33. According to Xinhua news agency, local authorities reported damage to 141 factory buildings, but no residential houses were destroyed. Chinese authorities reported that the tornado hit the city's Yoon district at around 3 p.m. local time on Saturday, with a maximum wind speed of 20.6 meters per second. As of 10 p.m. local time, search and rescue efforts were practically concluded. China's southern Guangdong province, with a population of some 127 million, saw flood damage from record rainfall for April, leading to the relocation of at least 110,000 people last week. In Cambodia, a mass cremation ceremony took place on Sunday, following the deaths of 20 soldiers in an ammunition warehouse explosion on Saturday. Cambodia's Defense Minister, Thea Seha, and Deputy Prime Minister, Hun Mani, along with the deceased soldiers' families, paid their final respects in a mass coffin ignition ceremony. The blast on Saturday in Chibardmon in Kampong Speu province damaged 4 military buildings and 25 civilian houses nearby. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet said he was deeply shocked by the blast and announced $20,000 of financial support for families of each of the dead soldiers, while offering $5,000 for each of the injured troops. No explanation has been given yet for the explosion. A zoo in northern France has welcomed the births of 2 rare Sumatran tiger cubs. The cubs Rimba and Toba, each weighing some 4.2 kilograms, made their home at the Amiens Metropole Zoo a month after their birth on March 22nd. Rimba and Toba are the second set of cubs from Menya, Amiens Zoo's female tiger, who was paired with a male Sumatran tiger, Argo, under the European breeding program of Sumatran tigers. The tigers, native to the Indonesian island of Sumatra, are on the IUCN's red list of critically endangered species, with fewer than 400 remaining in the wild. There are 125 captive Sumatran tigers in zoos in Europe. Around 100 babies gathered at Tokyo's Sensoji Temple on Sunday for the Nakizuma Crying Baby Festival. In a unique event to wish the babies good health and well-being, wrestlers from Nihon University Sumo Club attempted to make the babies cry, with the baby that cries first being declared the winner. Opposing babies are carried by sumo wrestlers who gently try to induce tears from the babies. Japanese folklore believes that a crying baby can ward off evil spirits, while a loud cry indicates a strong and healthy child. The Asakusa Tourism Federation organized the first crying baby sumo event at the Sensoji Temple in 1991. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's a rainy start to the new week for southern regions, but those of us in the upper parts of the country need a hat and sunblock. The resort island of Jeju and the south coast could see up to 60 millimeters through tomorrow morning. The rest of southern regions could see 5 to 40 millimeters all day today. And this band of rain is bringing down the weekend's summer-like temperatures. It could be more than 10 degrees lower in many many places this afternoon, so please hold on to your morning jacket. However, the capital area should see highs only going down a couple of degrees, while skies will get also much sunnier as the day goes on with an expected high of 26 degrees. But Guangzhou will be topping out at 14 degrees this afternoon. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. Then there will be passing rain in southern regions through the middle of this week, but it will get warmer and sunnier as we head towards the 3-day Children's Day weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.